All right, let's take you back to our top story. We were hearing from Bafadela Morane about what's going on in Hammanskraal. But of course, the water crisis in the country, it is not drying up. There are real issues to be dealt with. And let's now speak to Dr. Sean Phillips. He's Director General in the Department of Water and Sanitation. Thank you so much for joining us. We did hear you in that piece by Bafadela basically saying that obviously corruption is a concern. I also spoke to Outer's water can, Ferrell Adam, and she was saying that this issue of people actually being charged for getting water from water tankers is happening in other areas as well. Is that something you can directly action? Is it something you have to wait for the community? Do you speak to the police about it?
If we are given, we've heard and seen on social media that there are reports that this is happening. We are really appealing to members of the public to provide us with any evidence of it so that we can act on it. We have a toll-free number, 080-020-0200. If people can phone us with any information that they have about water tanker drivers selling water or about the so-called water mafia deliberately sabotaging water infrastructure so that water tanker operators can get more contracts to deliver water by water tankers, please give us evidence of that. If we can get evidence, we will refer it to the police and to the Hawks for investigation, and we will also refer it to the municipalities to investigate in case any of their officials are involved or their supply chain managers involved, and then we will monitor them taking action against it.
Okay, fantastic.
But it's completely wrong, it's illegal, it's unethical, and it should not be happening.
Right. So am I correct that you haven't seen any sort of systematic pattern of things breaking and then suddenly, you know, because I would imagine if it's being deliberately done so the water tankers can come in, you start to see a pattern. You're not seeing any specific pattern at this point?
Well, Sally, we have a big problem in the country of vandalism and theft of water and sanitation infrastructure, where metal parts of water systems and sanitation systems are stolen. Now, it's very difficult to know whether that theft is taking place so that the thieves can sell the stolen parts to get money to scrap metal merchants, or whether the thieves are stealing the parts in order to be able to sabotage the system so that more contracts can be awarded to water tanker companies.
And let's move now to Johannesburg because, you know, we have seen this ongoing problem, and I believe that the taps might finally be working for residents in south of Johannesburg, the South Hills area. We even saw the water minister actually arrive there. We've also heard comments from the mayor of Johannesburg, you know, talking about how much it's going to cost to fix. And the question raised actually by Ferrell Adam is it's not clear how it's all going to be paid for. Just talk to me about the problems in Johannesburg's water supply system and whether that falls under the municipality or does it fall under national, and is there actually money budgeted for it?
If I can take a few minutes just to explain, Rand Water supplies all the municipalities in Gauteng with treated water. Rand Water draws water out of the Vaal River system, which includes the Vaal Dam, and it treats that water and then supplies it to the municipalities. Us as the national department, we put an abstraction limit on the amount of water that Rand Water can draw from the integrated Vaal River system. Currently, the dams are quite full, but we don't know whether there's going to be a severe drought in a few months' time. So we have to make sure that there's enough water in the system to provide water sustainably to Gauteng. If we were irresponsible, we would allow much higher levels of abstraction, but then if there was a severe drought, then there would be a real danger that we could run out of water altogether in Gauteng. So we have to keep a certain amount of water in the system so that we can survive a drought, which it occurs. And bear in mind that Gauteng is a drought-prone area. And there's also been very high levels of population growth in Gauteng, which has resulted in increased demand. And the municipalities have also had increasing leaks in their distribution system, which has also resulted in increased demand, but the main cause of increased demand is population growth.
Yeah.
We did anticipate this as the department, and the Lesotho Highlands project is there in order to transfer additional water from the mountains in Lesotho into the Vaal River system. There's already a lot of water coming from Lesotho Highlands Phase 1 into the Vaal Dam, into the Vaal River system, but from Lesotho Highlands Phase 1, that's provided us with additional water for the last 15 years or so. But we also need Lesotho Highlands Phase 2, which unfortunately is 9 years overdue. When Lesotho Highlands Phase 2, which is now under construction, starts providing more water into the Vaal River system in 2028. By the way, it's a 40 billion rand project, Lesotho Highlands Phase 2. It's completely being funded with money which is raised by our entity, the Trans-Caledon Tunnel Authority. They're raising that 40 billion rand in the market from banks and pension funds. When that project comes on stream in 2028, then Rand Water is going to be able to draw additional water from the Vaal River system to be able to treat it and provide additional water to the municipalities. Rand Water currently has a 35 billion rand capital works program so that it can develop additional treatment capacity and storage capacity so that when that additional water comes into the Vaal River system from Lesotho in 2028, it will be able to treat additional water. Rand Water also borrows all the money that it invests. That 35 billion is also being raised from the private sector, from the banks and the pension funds.
So that's where the money's going to come from, yeah?
So that's where the money is going to come from for the additional bulk water supply and for the treated water supply. But the municipalities themselves also need to play a role. They need to invest more in their water infrastructure and its maintenance in order to reduce the leaks. On average, the municipalities in Gauteng are losing 25% of their water through leaks. You can imagine, Sally, if that could be reduced to 15%, then we wouldn't have the problems that we're having now, because we wouldn't have such a tight supply and demand situation that we have now.
And therein lies the rub, because we know, and I mean, Johannesburg is not in as dire a situation as many of the municipalities around the country. We know from the blue and green drop reports that many of the municipalities are simply not acting on the problems that they have on every level, but specifically around water. You know, something that Ferrell Adams said, and I think it's something actually the water minister said when he visited South Hills, is that this is a shared resource. We simply have to work together with all levels of government. But it seems to me that not everyone is playing their part. The point made by Dr. Adam is that Rand Water and Joburg Water, they're meant to spend, I think she said, 5 to 6% of their capital budget on maintenance. And she said not doing that. Now, over and above the population stresses, which is an absolutely valid issue, where has the planning happened? Why has this inflow of people not been anticipated? Is it the municipalities that are just not getting enough money from people who are not paying services, and everything's starting to fall apart?
As I indicated, the increased population in Gauteng was anticipated, and that's why the Lesotho Highlands Phase 2 project
but the problems are now. Yeah, but the problems are now. Yeah.
One of the main reasons why we're having the problems now is because we're 9 years overdue with the Lesotho Highlands project. If it had been completed on time in 2019, then Rand Water would have been able to invest in additional capacity. There would now be surplus capacity compared to the demand, and we wouldn't be having the problems that we're having now.
So why can't you release more water in the meantime from the Vaal Dam?
Because if we did, and then in a few months' time there was a drought, which is quite possible, knowing that the El Nino weather phenomenon has started, and this time around it's going to be a time of drought rather than flood in Gauteng. It's quite likely that we're going to have a drought. If we allow more abstraction, or as you say, release from the Vaal Dam now, then if there is a drought, we would run the risk of running out of water altogether.
Okay, so you have to, even though, is your message to people that you might have to put up with interruptions until the Lesotho Highlands Water Phase 2, I think you said, comes online?
the message is the same message that you talked about, is that we all need to work together. So we are putting our utmost effort into completing Lesotho Highlands Phase 2 as quickly as possible. Rand Water is focusing on implementing its capital works program so that it's able to provide more treated water when Lesotho Highlands Phase 2 comes online. By the way, Rand Water does allocate sufficient funding to maintenance. Its infrastructure is well maintained. It only loses 3% of its water in its systems compared to the municipalities. But as you indicated,
yeah.
we all have a role to play. The municipalities need to improve their billing and revenue collection so that they can allocate more money to maintenance and fixing of the leaks and stopping of the leaks. That will reduce the amount of water supply disruptions. And then also, Sally, the residents, I'm not blaming the residents of Gauteng for these problems, but the fact is that the average per capita water consumption per day in Gauteng is over 250 litres.
Okay.
The world average is 170 litres per capita per day.
Point well made. Point well made. Before I let you go, I have to just ask you about this. So this is something that our business anchor did in her business feature. She was looking at the money. She says that the Minister of Water and Sanitation, Senzo Mchunu, says that we need 90 billion rand a year for the next 10 years to fix water infrastructure problems. So in total over 10 years, that's 900 billion rand, which is an eye-watering amount. It's double Eskom's debt, she says. Is that money all going to be raised in the market? Is that how it's going to work?
The way our whole fiscal system is designed, Sally, is that water is supposed to be a self-financing function. It's not like the public education system where schools and hospitals are funded from the national fiscus, from income tax, corporate tax and VAT. Water is supposed to be self-financing. The users of water must pay their water bills from their municipalities. The municipalities must use that money to budget for maintenance and operation, and also for paying the water boards to buy the treated water, and the water boards in turn pay us to supply the water, the raw water, to maintain the dams. If the system was working properly, if the municipalities didn't have high levels of non-revenue water, if they had good billing and revenue collection systems, and if they were allocating the revenue from water sales to the water function, then the system should work. And those huge figures that you talked about should be able to be provided by municipalities,
but
particularly the major municipalities.
That's the problem. So what's the plan B? It's not working. People are not paying.
It's partially working, Sally.
But not
fully.
So
the water boards currently, as I mentioned, Rand Water is raising 40 billion on the markets for what it needs to do just for Gauteng. Many of the other water boards also raise finance.
Okay.
We have hundreds of billion. We have over 100 billion rand worth of projects in the pipeline, 60% of which is financed from money raised in the market. So the system is working at about 60 or 70% in terms of being a self-financing. But that financial sustainability is going to decrease unless we put a stop to this issue of increasing non-revenue water and in municipalities, and municipalities not doing billing and revenue collection well enough to pay their bills to the water boards.
Yeah, so it's absolutely crucial that that aspect comes on board properly. Thank you so much for spending time with us this evening and just really breaking down the many challenges and how the department is actually trying to deal with them. Interesting that 60 to 7% of our water we actually are paying for, but the point being made by the DG, every level of government and individuals, water usage, we all have to play our part, otherwise it's going to come seriously unstuck. I didn't know about the massive delays at the Lesotho Highlands Water Project, which does go some way to explain why we're in a bit of a crunch here in Johannesburg. Very interesting information indeed. That was the Director General in the Department of Water and Sanitation, Dr. Sean Phillips.